Greetings, everybody. I'm Mr. Wildcat, and welcome to another Mr. Wildcat's Married Children Reviews. Now, you guys have got an honor of hearing me on the previous two episodes of the Married Children podcast, where I had the honors of reviewing Bud Hits the Books with Stephen and Tyler on May 4th, and last week I got to review Kiss of the Coffee Woman with Chris and Luigi. Now, unfortunately, Mr. Wildcat can't appear on every episode of the Married Children podcast. We have to open the door for give other people opportunities. And so today, I'm here giving you a video review of Torch Song Duet. And the reason why we are going to be doing a video review is because there's a personal story regarding the 1996 Olympic Torch Relay that I'm going to share with you all. But first, let's go into a little bit of knowledge regarding the 1996 Olympics, okay? Well, let's back off for a moment. So let's take a look at the episode first. So in the episode, Al and Griff are preparing for a sports radio trivia contest where the winner receives a trip for two to the 1996 Summer Games in Atlanta. Al has all the sports trivia knowledge in order to be successful at the contest, but unfortunately is not eligible to participate, and it also has a lifetime ban from the radio station for making a sexist remark regarding women's golf. Okay? We could put a man on the moon, but we've yet to build an attractive woman golfer. Okay? So because of that, Griff has to call in, and with the help of Al, Griff winds up winning the contest, sending Al and Griff to the Summer Games in Atlanta. As an extra incentive, because Griff won the radio contest, he also has the honor of being an Olympic torchbearer, carrying the Olympic torch through the mall. Griff originally decides to let Al have the honor, but when a young, sexy black woman comes into the shoe store wanting to go out with Griff, hearing that he's going to be the one carrying the torch, Griff basically stabs Al in the back and takes all the glory for himself. After seeing all of the endorsement deals and all of the fame that Griff is getting from Al's answers on the trivia contest, Al finally snaps and steals the torch out of Griff's hands in an effort to run away with it, only to have the torch hurtling into the air into the mall fountain, where the flame is extinguished for the first time in 3,000 years. Al becomes an international embarrassment after the Summer Games have been postponed thanks to the thanks to the incident that he had at the mall. All right. So that's what the episode is all about. All right. Let's go into detail about the 96 Olympics, okay? So the 96 Olympics were hosted in Atlanta. They were held from the dates of July 19th through August 4th of 1996. The games were opened by then President Bill Clinton, with the Olympic cauldron being lit by boxing champion Muhammad Ali. The stadium was these ceremonies were held at Centennial Olympic Stadium, which later became a Major League Baseball stadium for the Atlanta Braves. Atlanta pretty much put all of their venues to successful use after the 96 Olympics had come to an end, which is a lot better than many other Olympics after the Atlanta Games had concluded. For example, when Athens got to host the Olympics in 2004, most of their venues were abandoned, left to rot. Same with Rio de Janeiro shortly after. Another example the 1984 Winter Games in Sarajevo, Yugoslavia. In the 1990s, the the Bosnian War. It wound up destroying many of the venues that were used for the 84 Winter Games. The the bobsled track was left to rot, left in graffiti. Most of the other facilities that were damaged were eventually rebuilt. So at least Sarajevo put some good use to their. They were able to correct a lot of the damage that was done out of their control. Another successful use, we had to go to 2002 when Salt Lake City hosted the Winter Olympics. A lot of their venues that were built for the Winter Games were donated to the University of Utah. The ceremony stadium that was used for the opening and closing ceremonies was transformed into a new football stadium for the Utes. And the Olympic Village was donated to the University of Utah's Residence Life Department. Utah tore down all of their old dormitories, or residence halls, and moved all of their students into the Olympic Village. So they got pretty good amenities for that. The Atlanta had a very successful execution of the Olympics, making a $19 million profit. All of their infrastructure that was needed to be built was privately funded. The only government funding that they needed to execute the games was for security, which is a lot more than, which is a pretty good bargain compared to other Olympics. So let's take a look at the budget, shall we? The 96 Summer Olympics estimated to cost around $1.7 billion. The venues and the games themselves were funded entirely by private investment, and the only public funding came from the U.S. government for security, and around $500 million for public money used on physical public infrastructure, including streetscaping, road improvements, Centennial Olympic Park, expansion of the airport, improvement in public transportation, and redevelopment for public transportation. Okay. When you take the ticket revenue that was sold, the sales sponsorship rights, and the domestic broadcasting rights for NBC, the games made a profit of $19 million. The cost for the 96 games compared with the cost of $4.6 billion for the 2016 games in Rio, $40 billion for Beijing 2008, and $51 billion for Sochi 2014. The average cost for the summer games since 1960 has cost $5.2 billion. Unlike Atlanta 1996, Beijing and Sochi were primarily funded by their respective governments. Okay? The games were awarded to Atlanta in 1990, with its competition coming from the following cities: Athens, Greece; Toronto, Canada; Melbourne, Australia; Manchester, Great Britain; and Belgrade in the former Yugoslavia. Okay. Atlanta was a big joke when they started their bid in 1987. The media did not take Atlanta's bid seriously for two reasons. Number one, the city was mediocre size, and number two, its rich history with the Confederacy. Okay? Then mayor eventually became ambassador to the United Nations, and from there they were able to persuade the International Olympic Committee, never mind our negative history with being affiliated with slavery and shit. Our racial relations in recent years has been on the rise. And I can promise you that we will be a very diverse and very positive Olympic environment if we were to receive the games. So it basically came down to Atlanta, Toronto, and Athens for the 96 Olympics. Toronto was the favorites coming in after Calgary had successfully executed the 1988 Winter Olympics. And it persuaded the IOC to give Canada a second shot at the Summer Games. Unfortunately, a couple of anti-Olympic groups in Canada put a sabotage to the bid. And Athens' bid, on the other hand, very sloppy and poorly constructed. Their main argument was, it's a centennial. It is this centennial of the Olympics. We created the games. We should be entitled. Athens' cocky attitude for the 96 games turned off a lot of voting members for the IOC. And after everything was said and done, Atlanta was awarded the games. The infrastructure in Atlanta's bid stood out with the IOC. They were very impressed. They also looked at the 84 games in Los Angeles, which were extremely successful. And they felt, out of all the options that they had, Atlanta would be the one to come out the most successful and make the most money at the end of the day. So that's how Atlanta received the bid. Okay. The Olympic torch relay, started on April 27th, 1996, and concluded on July 19th during the opening ceremonies of the 96 Summer Games. The route covered a total of 26,875 kilometers, or 16,699 miles, across the United States, and included a trek on the Pony Express, a ride on the Union Pacific Railroad, and the torch was taken into space for the first time. Okay. Muhammad Ali, who won a gold medal at the 1960 Games in Rome for boxing, was chosen to light the Olympic cauldron. The torch for the 96 Olympics was designed by Malcolm Greer and featured 22 aluminum reeds intended to represent the number of times the games had been held up to that point. A gold-plated band towards the base of the torch features the names of all 20 host cities up to and including Atlanta, while the logo is etched into another band near the top. The handle, made of Georgia hardwood by Hillerick and Bradbury Company, maker of Louisville Slugger bats, is found near the center of the 76-centimeter torch. In total, it weighed 1,600 grams or 56 ounces. Torchbearers were allowed to purchase the Olympic torch that they carried for a price of $275. Okay. Overall, there were a total of 12,467 torchbearers from the moment that the torch showed up at the Santa Monica Pier in Los Angeles to its official lighting at the 1996 opening ceremonies. Now here's where my story comes into play. All right. I told you earlier in the video that I had a special story to tell you all regarding the 1996 Olympic torch relay. And here it is. Okay. June 15th, 1996, the 50th, I think it was day 50 of the Olympic torch relay. The torch is en route from Niagara Falls, New York to Rochester, New York. Okay? At the time, I was just about to finish my third grade year at DeSales Catholic School in Lockport, New York, which is en route from Niagara Falls to Rochester. Okay? One of the 12,467 torchbearers that got to carry the torch was my school principal, Sister Roberta Thon, Thoen. Okay. Now, the how did you get to carry the torch? You might ask. Many of them were famous athletes. Others were community heroes. Sister Roberta was nominated as a community hero for helping get DeSales up and running. All right. I'm going to share with you a story. All right. It's very, all right. This is tied into why Sister Roberta was nominated for the 96 Olympic Torch Relay. Okay. This is directly from the DeSales Catholic School's website. All right. DeSales Catholic High School was originally a Catholic high school. All right. Established in 1946 by the Oblates of St. Francis de Sales. Open as an all-boys secondary school. It was originally housed in the former home of Herbert Harrison on Chestnut Ridge Road, New York State Route 31. Enrollment grew under the careful guidance of the Oblates, and a new building was dedicated on March 27, 1949. During the 1950s, DeSales was enlarged and became co-ed in 1958 when the all-girls St. Joseph's Academy in Lockport was closed. The Sisters of St. Mary of Namur, who had founded and served as teachers at the academy, were added to the DeSales faculty. Okay. Over the years, DeSales had an exemplary record in academic, artistic, and athletic achievements, and many leaders in the Lockport community are DeSales alumni. Unfortunately, declining enrollment forced the closure of DeSales High School in 1989. For several years after, General Motors leased the building for use as a training facility. Lockport's biggest employer at the time, Harrison's, manufactured auto parts which they shipped out to the General Motors plants in Detroit for use in General Motors vehicles. All right, so that's where General Motors comes into play. In the meantime, the Diocese of Buffalo authorized the formation of the Lockport Catholic Education Council as the governing body for the 3 parish grammar schools in the city. From 1970 to 1994, Lockport Catholic School existed as a consolidated school system serving grades pre-K through 8 in 3 school buildings: St. Mary's, St. Patrick's, and St. John the Baptist. Excuse me one moment while I take a sip of Girly Girl beer. In 1993, a group of concerned parents proposed to the diocese that DeSales be reopened as a regional Catholic elementary school. The effort was called the Move of Faith, and organizers were required to raise $500,000, maintain student enrollment, and refurbish the building. With dedication, prayer, and hard work, the enrollment and fundraising goals were not merely met but surpassed. On Sunday, August 24, 1994, the Most Reverend Edward D. Head, Bishop of Buffalo, joined with parents, students, and supporters to celebrate the reopening of DeSales as Eastern Niagara County's only Catholic elementary school. Sister Roberta had been in charge of Lockport Catholic Schools since 1987, and in 1994 she was hired to be DeSales' first ever principal. She served as principal until 1998, when she moved to South Carolina to open up a new private school, and eventually moved down to Alabama to open up another school. The last I have not spoken to Sister Roberta since she left DeSales in 1998, but the one thing I can definitely tell you is that Sister Roberta is still alive to this date and is either still down in Alabama running a Catholic school, or has returned to Buffalo, New York, living in retirement. She's in her mid to late 70s at this point. So there, I cannot give you an exact answer of what's she's been of exactly where she is, but it's between one of those two places. Okay. Sister Roberta's leadership of getting DeSales up and running under the circumstances I just read got DeSales off to a very successful start, and the momentum from that start kept DeSales running successfully throughout the years. And that's why Sister Roberta was selected to carry the Olympic torch uh, throughout the city of Lockport and outside of our school on the morning of June 15th, 1996, as the torch was making its way from Niagara Falls to Rochester. Okay? Sister Roberta eventually got to keep the Olympic torch because she basically kept it in her office during the time that she was there. Now, I unfortunately can't answer what has happened with that torch since. I don't know if she took it with her when she left DeSales, or if it stayed in the principal's office, or if it stayed in a case in the school hallway. I can't tell you that because I have not seen the torch since Sister Roberta has left. Any of you guys currently attending DeSales who can give me an answer on that, write down in the comments below. Alright? I haven't been in that school in 22 years. I would like to get the answer to that. Okay? So that is my story with the 96 Olympic torch. And to tell you right now, preparing for the 96 torch relay, that's the first time I'd ever heard about the Olympics. And there was a lot of publicity about it because the United States was hosting the games that year. And because the torch was going to be carried in front of our school, our gym teacher at the time, Mrs. Grancelli, told the class the following, and I remember this word for word. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity that you may never experience again. That's what sold me into attending the torch relay parade and getting to see Sister Roberta, our principal, carry that torch. It also inspired me to watch the Olympics on TV. The 96 games in Atlanta were the first time I had ever watched the summer games. My first exposure to the winter games would come a year and a half later in 1998 when I was in the 5th grade. Our social studies teacher, Mr. Wiebert, took 2 weeks doing nothing but covering the Olympics. We got to watch the CBC feed of the Olympics from the classroom. We got to watch curling. We got to watch figure skating. We got to watch a bunch of other stuff too. We even got to watch Chef Soto cooking in between Olympic events. We basically learned about the Olympics as a whole, and we also got to learn about the national anthem, because I'll tell you right now. One morning, the United States had won a gold at the Nagano Olympics for 1998. They were playing the Star Spangled Banner. We're sitting there watching in silence. Mr. Wiebert was in absolute disgust. Disappointed that we did not know we as 5th graders did not know our own national anthem. Mr. Wiebert was pretty okay when you if you were doing something that he did not approve of. His famous saying was, "I am very disappointed in you all," or "I am very disappointed in you." Okay. This type of saying I wind up saying in my grown up life. And I say it because that's how I was raised. Okay? We wind up learning the Star Spangled Banner all because Mr. Weeper was absolutely disgusted that we were not singing along with it. All right. And I'll tell you another thing about Mr. Weeper. Mr. Weeper wound up leaving DeSales after my fifth grade was over with. But the following, he made regular appearances. He kept visiting the school on a regular basis since then, or at least for the rest of the time I was there. In 1999, a year after he left, then President Bill Clinton was in Buffalo doing a speech, and Mr. Weeper won free tickets to Clinton's rally at the Sabres hockey arena. You had to have tickets to attend the event, and it was a hot event, so he won 2 free tickets on a news talk radio contest. He shows up to pick up the tickets, tears them up in front of the radio employees, and the response is, "What the fuck was that for? These are the hottest tickets in town." Mr. Weeper's response, "That just shows you how much respect I have for Clinton." Okay? He wound up on Rush Limbaugh because of that. Okay? Sorry for getting a little political here, but this is basically personal experiences. Like, this is where these people have gone. All right? Why don't we move on, shall we? Because I know there's a couple of things I would like to cover. So I do have to give give very strong credit to our writers, and I give extra. And in my rating, I'll get to it in my rating, but they basically did a superb job on their Olympic research. All right. Now, I had absolutely no idea that. Okay, at the beginning of the episode, when Griff is trying to he's trying to flirt with this girl in the shoe store, and she slaps Griff. I had no idea this was the same lady that came back in the later part of the episode and tried to seduce Griff after finding out that he was going to be carrying the torch. Okay? So that's something I did not know about. Okay. They also had this episode also went out pretty strong with with special guests. All right, they had Richard Klein. I've never seen I've never seen Three's Company. Like, I've seen a couple of clips here and there. I would browse through the TV and I would find them on the TV, but I've never seen a full episode of Three's Company, and I've never understood what the show is about, even though I do know that the show did feature John Ritter, Suzanne Summers, and Don Knotts. That's all I know about the show. Maybe someday I may consider binge watching Three's Company. Probably after the Married Children podcast finishes reviewing season 11. Say the very least. Okay? There is a scene where, like, Bud and Kelly in the shoe store. Like, I don't know if this was necessary or not, but I think the reason why it was put in here was to try to test Al into trying to open his mouth so Calvin Farquhar could recognize that was Al Bundy standing right next to him. Okay? Now, Al was about to say, when Kelly asked if she can go to Vegas, he was getting ready to say absolutely not, but he kept his mouth shut only because he did not want Calvin to know that he was Al Bundy. And he basically strangled Bud Bundy so hard and threw him into the stock room when Bud tried to blow the cover. Okay? That was pretty funny. All right? Now, I know podcast teams say, like, this wasn't necessary. Well, in a way, in some cases it wasn't, but the thing is, you gotta find some way to you gotta find some way to test it out to see how far is it going to be before Calvin finds out that this is really Al Bundy. All right. So then we see Al and Bud and Kelly watching TV. They're trying to flicker around. Griff is on the channels and stuff. I'm not a big fan of BET, but that was a pretty fun joke right by itself. Coming up on BET, Griff asks OJ the tough questions. Now we all know exactly what kind of tough questions, but Griff was going to be asking. Did you really kill no Ron and Nicole? How did you get away with double murder? They're going to ask questions about his trial, which he got acquitted for double murder. For those of you who did not know, okay. So in case you guys don't understand, O.J. Simpson in the summer of '94, Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman were murdered, and O.J. Simpson was arrested as a primary suspect in the case. He wound up luring LAPD on a very slow, very long police chase throughout a good part of the LA metro before finally surrendering and going to jail. He wound up the trial wound up lasting almost a year and a half before the jury wound up acquitting him on a no guilty plea. All right. And here's the one thing we'll get into this in just a moment, but okay. There was also a Barney impression, but I'll talk about Barney in just a moment, okay? I want to talk about Bruce Jenner, okay? I have to agree with Chris and Luigi. Like, did married children know in advance? I mean, were they able to foresee the future like The Simpsons has? Okay? It was funny. It was probably funny then. It's a lot funnier now. Now that Bruce has actually become has actually become a woman. By the way, Bruce, do you miss your penis? Okay, that was a funny joke, and I do have to give the episode extra credit for making that joke. Not once, but twice. And if you're listening, and if you actually include the closing credits a third time. All right. That's why I'm talking about Barney, shall we? Okay? Because I want to go a little bit further into this. Now, I was about 5 or 6 years old when Barney and Friends first came out on PBS. All right? And I unfortunately have to admit that I had actually liked him for about a year or two, and then I eventually grew out of it. All right? I do have to mention something else okay, that was not mentioned in the Married Children podcast. Barney and Friends, okay, Barney and Friends did start on PBS in 1992, but that was not the beginning of Barney. Barney was actually created in 1988 through a VHS series called Barney and the Backyard Game. Okay? This was on a straight to VHS series that lasted about 8 episodes. Okay? And these episodes pretty much include, like, there was one where Barney goes to school, there's one where they're waiting for Santa, there's one where you have 3 wishes where the backyard gang is bored on a Saturday afternoon trying to figure out what to do, and Barney grants them 3 wishes. They end up going to a fun park, they go to the moon, and they go to a petting farm or something like that. They wind up making good use of their Saturday. Then they also have another episode where they go to the beach. They have a Barney in concert. Barney, okay. Backyard Game is in a television studio. Okay. This series is most likely out of print, so unless you're able to find them on YouTube, you're pretty much out of luck. All right. But let me tell you something about this VHS series. Okay. Some guy from the Connecticut Public Television, okay, he wound up running one of these Barney videos for his daughter, and the daughter got very well into it, and inspired, and the guy got so inspired by this, he basically felt this could make a good TV show for PBS. So he tried to persuade the public broadcasting system, PBS, to put Barney on their station. And from there, holy shit, it wound up going down the tube. Okay, it's very. Okay, you have this saying, "I love you, you love me," and you have all these stupid songs and stuff. And these kids, holy shit, they feel like okay. You have to feel like they're on drugs, okay, or you have to feel like you would have to be on drugs in order to enjoy this show. All right, it was so creepy. All right, as you grew up. And no wonder why parents could not stand Barney. In 2002, Barney and TV Guide came out with its list of the 50 worst shows in the history of television. Barney was number 50 on the list. And for those of you wondering what was number one, it was Jerry Springer, who made an appearance in season 8's No Ma'am episode as the masculine feminist. Now, another show on the list, all right, Married Children did not show up on this list for TV Guide, but related to Married Children, there was another show that did appear on it. Unhappily Ever After, that aired on the UPN from 1995 to 1999, that was created by co-creator Ron Levitt. He left Married Children in season 8 or 9 to go over to do Unhappily Ever After for the UPN. And that show, unfortunately, and even though they were trying to do a knockoff to Married Children, it did not sit very well. I haven't watched the show I've never watched a full episode of that show. So I really can't tell you whether I liked or hated it. Unhappily Ever After. Okay? Now, if it wasn't bad enough that Barney was on a TV show, okay, then if it wasn't disturbing enough that Barney and Friends was very annoying for PBS, some idiot had the idea to make Barney into a motion picture, out of all things. Barney's Great Adventure in 1998, all right? And I only know this because I have younger siblings, okay, that were fans of Barney at the time. When the movie came out in 1998, my mother had my older sister and my grandmother take my younger sister and my brother to go see Barney's Great Adventures in the movie theater. They wanted me to go along with them, and I would not do it because I had outgrown Barney. I was not, and it felt stupid being there for my age. Okay. So my mother said, "Carl, you didn't get to go to Barney. Since you want to go to Barney, we need to make things fair for you. I'm gonna let you pick a movie that you want to go see." And you know what film I wound up going and see in its place? Titanic. Pretty cool, huh? Now I tell you one thing: how disgusting the Barney movie was. Okay, or at least from what I heard. When my sister and when my sister came back from going to the Barney movie, she told my mother and myself it was pretty disturbing because you had all these little kids, all these little babies and toddlers and stuff in the movie theater with their stuffed Barney dolls. Horrible. All right. Would you guys believe Trey Parker, co-creator of South Park, was originally offered $1.5 million to direct the Barney movie? Out of all fucking people in the world, you want to take this X-rated guy and direct a G-rated movie for a bunch of 1 and 2-year-olds? You out of your mind? The film was made on a $15 million budget, and believe it or not, it did not break even. It actually only grossed $12 million. Now I'm going to tell you something about this, all right? And I'm not even okay. Um, because I wound up seeing commercial. Because I remember all these commercials showing up on all over the TV and stuff. All right. There is a brand of disposable diapers named Love's, owned by Procter and Gamble, that wind up being a sponsor of this Barney movie. And in response, so in exchange for having a product placement in the movie, they also put Barney on their diaper products, which they wind up showing, which couple of years at the very least. Okay, so don't go telling me that Barney movie did not break even, especially with all the publicity that I had seen. And I'm not even sure why I would even think about this. With all these, can't even tell you how many people that I've been around or worked with in the last 5 or 6 years that are actually old enough to have shit in these crap. Period. Moving on. We're now going to move into Tanya Harding. All right, because one of the last wisecracks is we when people think of Olympic shame, they'll think of Elle Bundy first and then Tanya Harding. Now I know that Tanya Harding was involved with Nancy Kerrigan being whacked with a pipe. Okay. What I did not know until the podcast episode aired was the fact that Tanya Harding had received a lifetime ban from figure skating. Okay? That part I did not know. This probably explains why Tanya Harding wind up showing up on all of these TV show episodes on True TV. They did like the Smoking Gun presents the 20 stupidest things and stuff. Like she wind up showing up as a regular on these stupid things. Like these are actual people that are so pathetic they can't get a job anywhere else. Donnie Baladucci, okay, who appeared as a guest in Married Children's season 8's How Green Was My Apple. He's another one of these regulars on these Smoking Gun episodes. Okay, that's what Tanya Harding's been having to settle for in terms of employment, in terms of work, since she's not allowed to figure skate anymore. Okay. So before I get my ass chewed, I am going to give you my official rating for the Torch Song Duet. Okay. Yes, the episode does lack Katie Seagal, but they did a very wonderful job with the Olympic-centered episode. They got a very good supporting crew to appear on this episode. They also did a successful job trying to interpret the '96 Olympics into this episode. Okay, with the Olympics being so close, it was very appropriate. It was a very appropriate thing to do. In addition to this, I remember like the weekend before the Olympics officially kicked off, Fox wound up repeating this episode. Right? I wound up watching and recording the Simpsons episode that aired before this, Mother Simpson, where Homer's mother comes into Springfield and we find out why we haven't seen her before. I wound up recording an episode on VHS, and it also picked up the introduction to Married Children. But once Married Children came on, we were forced to turn off the TV because we were not allowed to watch the show at the time. Fucking parents. All right. But now that I've got to see this episode, it was very good. It was very funny, and I think very highly of it. This is one of my top, Married Children finished off season 10 on a very strong note with some very good episodes. Bud Hits the Books, Kiss of the Coffee Woman, Torch Song Duet, Elle Goes to the Dogs. These were all these are all amongst some of my favorite episodes to come out of season 10, and only time will tell if Torch Song Duet will be on my list of top favorite episodes of season 10. It's going to be a hard one to predict. But I'm going to be on the exact same page as the Married Children podcast crew for this one, and I am going to give a 4.5 out of 5 for this episode. Okay? So that is all we have for today. And I invite you guys to tune in to next week's Married Children podcast episode, the final episode of season 10, The Joke's on Al. It's not one of my favorite episodes of season 10, but it does have a very good synopsis, and it does close the gap. It does have some very good surprises, and it also, might I add, closed the gap on some of the things that have been left wide open throughout the entire season. You'll have to tune in to find out how this episode turns out. So until then, I'm Mr. Wildcat signing off, and we'll see you same Bundy time, same Bundy channel.